it's a remarkable experience to hang out with them.
One of the things you stressed as president was that we are in a generational war against terrorism. It's been 18 years since 9/11 and those attacks, and which really changed America's focus, and setting the country on a different way to deal with terrorism and taking the fight to the enemy. And of course, Baghdadi, who was just killed after our commander-in-chief, the now commander-in-chief, President Trump, did the order. The special forces went in, they got Baghdadi, and it was just another reminder. And I thought about you in terms of that generational war on terror. And is that something you talk about with those veterans?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, they don't need to be convinced that they were doing a necessary thing to protect the country. To a person, they recognize that. And I was just talking to some. We're eating some nice barbecue here, by the way, Dana. And I was talking to a fella, and he was talking about how, working with our allies in the Middle East, they were able to track down some of these extremists, and they're no longer capable of harming America. And so he understood the nature of the conflict. Most of these troops do understand the nature of the conflict. Mm-hmm. And it's, as I talked about when I was president, it's going to be a long conflict. And the United States has got to stay engaged and keep the pressure on in order to protect our own homeland.
I thought maybe I would ask you about something that happened 30 years ago when your father was president, former President George H.W. Bush, when the Berlin Wall fell. And maybe where were you that day, or what you remember about that, and how that set the course for a different type of world in terms of globalization as that has moved forward, and how you see that looking back and maybe even looking forward.
Dana, I can't remember what I was doing. But I know I can remember who was there, and that was George H.W. Bush, who did a masterful job of working with allies to create peace and or the opportunity for peace. One of the things that impressed me when I think about that issue is that when the wall went down, he chose not to go and gloat. In other words, he displayed a great sense of humility, which I think reflected well upon our country. And no question, a unified Germany has helped lead to a more peaceful Europe, and is one of his proud accomplishments.
What about as a grandfather? We're in a country that, as you always reminded me, we're not as polarized as we've been in our past, and everything's going to be okay. Democracy is self-healing, so you have an optimistic attitude. But going forward, you have long talked about the concerns for the country to make sure that you stay engaged with your country, be an active participant, and support our military and our veterans in order to preserve what our founding fathers helped create in the first place.
That's right. Yeah, look, I'm optimistic about the future because, as you mentioned, I do believe democracy is self-healing. This is an unsettled period in our country, but this isn't the first time we've had unsettled periods. And I won't be around to see my grandkids thrive and prosper, but I'm convinced the world they'll be entering into will be unique and full of all kinds of possibilities. Did you have any crashes today out there on the ride? When one friend crashed, not me. And
do you ever let anybody ride in front of you now?
No, I don't. I don't. That's part of the rules, Dana. And
that's why I never rode, because I didn't want to show you up. I'm pretty good out there.
No, you would have shown me up. I bet you'd have. I bet if you put your mind to it, you'd have been great.
Mr. President, let me give you a chance for one last word. Your message to our nation's military and veterans today.
Yeah, here on Veterans Day, or Veterans Weekend, once again, I want to express my deep appreciation for the fact that you volunteered in the face of danger to serve our country. We still need you, and it was an honor to be your commander-in-chief.
All right, Mr. President, thank you. I'll be in touch.
All right, Dana, thank you very much.
Bye. The breaking news on Capitol Hill, up next.